Good evening and welcome to the Foxborough Board of Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013. On the agenda tonight at 7:30 p.m. we have a public hearing continued, alteration of the premises all alcohol restaurant license for MPS LLC DBA Gillette Stadium, 1 Patriots Place, manager James J. Nolan Jr. At 8:30 we have deliberation for the transfer of all alcohol license restaurant license, change of locations, pledge of license and stock from Foxborough Realty Association, LLC to SV Patriots Place, LLC, DBA Splitsville Patriots Place, 220 Patriots Place, manager Paul G. Holian, Jr. And the second part of that is application for Common Victoria's license for SV Patriots Place, LLC. And the third application for a 7-day entertainment license for SV Patriots Place, LLC. And if we get to it, this is also very continued from our last meeting, so tonight's a special added meeting. 8:45, Board of Selectmen, discussion of BOS outside meetings, town manager, search committee, and town hall project. Okay, Lorraine, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There is no citizens' input tonight, so we'll get right into the public hearing continue. Do we need to make a motion to reopen the hearing?
No.
Okay. Okay, so, James, would you please come forward with your... When we ended the last meeting, and James had just gone over the history of the layout of Gillette Stadium and that whole area that's contained the liquor licenses, and that they want to expand, and he shows how he wants to expand the liquor license. So I'll turn it right over to you again, James, whenever you're ready. And just for the record, gentlemen, if you could introduce yourselves again, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. James Joseph Nolan Jr., liquor manager for the license that we're speaking about this evening.
I'm Jim Coburn, General Counsel of the Craft Group.
Stephen Miller from the firm of McDermott, Quilty and Miller.
Welcome. Okay. Who wants to start, James?
Sure. So, as a starting point, we spent some time last meeting talking about the licenses in general, and also about all the policies and procedures that we have in place at Gillette Stadium. So just as a refresher for tonight, when we talked last time, we talked about the stadium had 3 liquor licenses, and they were all operated under uniform control. So me as the manager, Mark Graves as security, David Wheel as food and beverage. Our entire organization treated them as one in terms of the way we operated, and all of them follow the same procedures, from team training to how we deploy, how we supervise. All of our alcohol policies, all uniformly controlled. And as this board knows, last spring or winter, the license that was covering the orange area here was transferred to Sega Hibachi Japanese Steakhouse, and I am happy to report that it is now open. The stadium footprint in question is the larger area in red that encompasses not only the stadium itself, but also the upper practice field, what we refer to as the upper practice field, and the parking lot next to the upper practice fields, including the stands that are used for training camp and other activities. And the last one, the one we're speaking about tonight, is the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse and Lot 10. So we had 3 liquor licenses, we have 2, and the statute allows us to expand the footprint which is why we're requesting the alteration of premises. And we're expanding it into areas that we currently or previously had liquor licenses. So from a abutter perspective, from a neighbor perspective, from the number of people who are going to use the facility, it's really remains unchanged. It's really the same as we're going to operate today. Additionally, from what we talked about, wanted to show again the license that, as far as I could go back in a map, which was 2003 after Gillette Stadium opened, the Gillette Stadium liquor license essentially covered the same area that it does today, including the upper practice fields in this area. So this has been consistent since we opened Gillette Stadium. The 3 licenses in question predate Gillette Stadium. They've been used and operated by Gillette Stadium, former entities, Foxborough Stadium, going back a long, long way. In addition to the policies and procedures I talked about last time, I wanted to highlight 2 more, because I think they're both important. The first, from an overall control of the stadium, and specifically with respect to alcohol, Homeland Security is saying, if you see something, say something. And we've adopted that not only with respect to security, but also with respect to alcohol service. And I don't think there's many venues out there who ask their patrons to help them look for things, look for issues. And the way I highlight that is that we put in place a text messaging system in which any fan can text to us anonymously anything they see in the stadium. And it could be everything from a broken seat, someone getting sick, or someone getting sick, a medical, a possible fight. But that comes into our command center. Command center is staffed by Foxborough PD, Foxborough Fire, stadium staff, and it allows us to respond to all those issues. So it's really our organization taking it to the next level, that we have Foxborough PD throughout the site, we have security throughout the site, Foxborough Fire, state police on Route 1s, but we take it to a further extent. And what I brought also in tonight, just to show you that every 5 minutes during our NFL games, on our boards, we run that. It's included in our fan code of conduct, it's included online, it's included flyers that get handed out to every patron who parks on our site and in satellite lots. But this is an important piece of our program too, is that we want safe service of alcohol all the time. And even though we have supervisors that address it, which I talked about last week, even though we have over 100 police officers at NFL games inside the stadium, as well as all our management and over 900 security guards, we want the 70,000 fans to be our eyes and ears too. So I thought that was important to point out to the board. Additionally, one other measure which I think makes us unique, and we were a leader in the NFL in this initiative, but when someone does something wrong at the stadium, be it a PC, arrest, an ejection, anything that detracts from the enjoyment of our fans, they get a letter of disinvite. And that letter of disinvite says you can't come back to Gillette Stadium. And if you come back, you're arrested for trespassing. And as Chief O'Leary would attest, we arrest people for trespassing because the people who cause problems twice. But what we do is it's not a final judgment, but in order for someone to be able to come back to Gillette Stadium, we require that they take a 4-hour online awareness course that talks about alcohol, that talks about aggressive behavior, and detracting from the enjoyment of others. And only after those people complete that course are they allowed back in Gillette Stadium, and even then, it's at our discretion. So if someone does something so offensive to us and so offensive to our fan base, even if they take that course, it's still in our discretion whether we let them back or not. So we have strong policies in all areas, and I won't spend time tonight going over the history that we went over last week, and I can go into it as much detail as you want. But really, in summation, just wanted to reiterate that it's uniform control. We're not adding to what we do today as a stadium. We're just continuing what we do. There's no impact on any abutters or neighbors because we're operating the same. It's allowable, reasonable, and proper. And later tonight, we're going to respectfully ask this board to approve this measure.
Okay.
So from my perspective, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this?
I would, after you have public comment I believe the chief is going to speak. I'd like to just do a summation.
Okay, any questions from the board for Jim? James?
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody from the public wishing to be heard on this matter? Please come to the microphone right here, please, and state your name, address, and all.
Hi, my name is Steve Tierney. I live on 15 Elm Street in Foxborough. I've been a resident for about 7 years now. I heard about Splitsville. I looked it up online. I'm a big proponent of getting some more family events and places up at Patriot Places. Lots of bars, lots of restaurants, a movie theater. You've got the Legends, Leagues of the Sea, whatever that is. Another good place to take your kids for a birthday party. I have 3 small children. Well, not that small, 15, 11, and 9. It's a great place to have a birthday party. I've been to King's in Dedham, but again, that's in Dedham. I've been to the North Bowl in North Attleboro. Not the nicest place around, not the cleanest place, and some of their clientele are very questionable. But what I think what Splitsville's going to do is going to be upper class, similar to a King's. I'm sure at least half of you have been to King's in Dedham or the one in downtown Boston. I welcome it. It's another family venue up there. I don't think it's going to be a big place. You're not going to go hang out and drink there. Will they serve alcohol? Of course they will. Are they going to serve food? Of course they will. Is it good family entertainment? Absolutely. We're not talking about putting in a biker bar or a methadone clinic. It's a family place that's going to be beneficial to everybody in the town of Foxborough. I know you guys need to raise money to pay for the new town hall, so any additional tax revenue, I welcome it as a
Not
parent.
anymore.
Not anymore? Good, I was going to vote against that too, so. But I welcome Splitsville to Foxborough. I welcome more entertainment up there that's more family valued at it. It's something to do. Lots of good restaurants, lots of good stores. But now you have something. I feel confident having my 15-year-old and 11-year-old up there with their buddies and their cell phones, and I'll drop them off there for 3 hours and come back and pick them up. I have no worries when they go up there. It's well secured. The security, it's clean. There's no like gang members hanging around or questionable people. It's great for the surrounding communities, and I would welcome it to Foxborough.
Okay. We're gonna have that discussion at 8:30, hopefully.
What's that?
We're gonna have that discussion at 8:30, hopefully.
Which one?
Splitsville, right now, we're talking about a different venue.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Splitsville. So
No, it'll all play into itself together, so, but thank you for your
it's all the way in
comment.
the foundation then.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks. Okay, on the subject of, the alteration of premises for Patriots Gillette Stadium, does anybody else wish to be heard on this? Okay, your name, everything for the record, please.
Sure. I'm Brian Bolello. I'm president of Craft Soccer in the New England Revolution. I just wanted to talk to the committee about both the alteration of the license to Gillette Stadium as well as the transfer of license to Splitsville. In terms of the alteration of the license to Gillette Stadium, as the president of the Revolution, we use those spaces for a lot of different things throughout the year in terms of hospitality for both our fans, for both sponsors. So they're great spaces for us to use. They're integral to the Revolution's operations in terms of attracting sponsors, keeping sponsors, attracting fans, and keeping fans. So for us to have those spaces for use is really critical to our operation. In terms of Craft Soccer, which is the entity that operates all the soccer events at the stadium, I'm also in charge of bringing things like the Brazil-Portugal match that we had this past year, the U.S. women's national team, and all the other international events that we've had at the stadium. And what I can say for those events, it's a very, very competitive bidding process to get those events here. They usually only happen once in one place in the country. There's dozens of venues bidding for those events. So to get Brazil-Portugal to come to Gillette Stadium is not an easy thing. That match alone, as you may know, generated over $140,000 in town user charges with the ticketing associated with that match. Since 2007, we've generated $1 million in town user charges for non-Revolution regular season matches at Gillette Stadium, and all those matches are generally very competitive bidding process. And what's really important to a lot of those organizations, both the national teams and the club teams like Manchester United that we brought in 2011, is having hospitality spaces. It's critical to their operation. They bring a lot of sponsors with them to the matches, and having spaces like this for them to be able to utilize for hospitality, not only on the day of the match, but training is actually a big thing for these folks. And so they bring their clients to the training sessions. So the availability of both the indoor and the outdoor field spaces is actually quite critical because people want to come see and watch the teams practice while they're being entertained. So in terms of the transfer of the license to Splitsville, I think it would just be great to have that function and event space here at the stadium as well. I know we would probably utilize it for fans and for clients as another alternative for something to do for them. I actually, last year, when the gentleman mentioned Kings, we actually had an event at Kings for the Revolution up in Dedham, and I know we certainly would have had that at Splitsville, and probably will have future events at Splitsville if we had that right on site. So I think it would be great. I live in an adjoining town. I'm at Patriot Place all the time. I have 2 young girls. I'm sure we would make use of it. I've been to Disney where there's one, and it was a lot of fun. So with all those things, I'd ask that both the transfer of the license to Splitsville and the redoing of the license for Gillette Stadium be approved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Light, how are you?
So far, so good. You guys want to get a stretch in? We want to get a little crazy, take a little time, coffee? You all good? No, look, Matt Light, Foxborough resident. I would like to say thank you for Sega. I had a meal there with my family tonight about an hour ago. It was good. It was a good move. I want to talk a little bit about what we've done with our foundation. We formed the Light Foundation in 2002. We had the honor of hosting our first family fun event that we've been able to do through the foundation here locally. And we did it at the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse last summer. So if you're familiar with cornhole and the cornhole commotion, you heard the craziness. That was us. We had a great time. We had a lot of family members, a lot of kids activities, a lot of great things that we were able to do for our foundation to help raise money. And look, to be able to do that and have the component of having alcohol there, while that's not the main focus of what we do through the foundation, it definitely does help when we do fundraisers. So from our point of view, to be able to continue that event, which we are looking forward to and we're planning on now, we would definitely need to be able to utilize the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse. So me to be able to support this cause and be able to have this transfer the license would be great for not only me with respect to the foundation, but also I think for a lot of other activities that could take place and do take place on an annual basis. As far as the Splitsville, my kids love the bowl, so if we can make that happen, that'd be great too. So definitely in support of everything that's proposed here tonight, and appreciate all the support. We know we've got a lot of support from you guys in the past, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Okay, I move that we close the public hearing at 12 minutes of.
Council
sorry.
wanted to summarize.
Did you want?
Well, he wanted to hear O'Leary speak, but he's on an official basis. We're just talking about the public hearing itself right now, correct?
Yeah, well, counsel still is advocating
public?
for his client.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still
So you
within the
want-
public hearing,
Well,
sure.
thank you for the guidance. Okay, counsel.
Okay, I would like to be able to say a few things after the chief speaks
Okay, Edward,
also.
are you prepared to speak?
What's he talking about? The alteration.
You're talking about the alteration of premises, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's getting a little confusing.
That's right, that's what I'm on.
Certainly, I was following the conversations at the last meeting of the board with the reiteration of the zones that they're trying to create. It goes back to even prior to the Kraft Group ownership with the racetrack license and the 2 licenses they had, one for the track kitchen and one for the raceway itself. I'm not as familiar with the process that we're going through now. I know that the fence line does cover the current field house, and that they've implemented changed security practices, so entry into the field house is the same as entry into the stadium itself, to upgrade the security level when there are events going on.
Thank you. Counsel?
Okay, just for the record, I'd like to just, again, memo to council, and just for the record.
Thank you.
And then just briefly.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's no problem.
Thank you.
As you heard, the area that we're seeking was licensed. That license was granted for this location, was granted in 2003. And we have operated it without any problems whatsoever, no violations, no police calls, no issues. You've heard the um, Jim Nolan talk about the security issues we handle and how we do this. The chief certainly has reviewed our policies several times and spoken about our security procedures. They will all remain the same. When this license was granted in 2003, the issue of public need and common good was decided at that time by this board. I would suggest that since that time, based on our operation, the issue of public need and common good has not changed. We have not caused any problems to neighbors. We have not caused any problems to the police. The premises, if you grant this alteration, the premises would remain exactly the same. There would be no changes to the premises. They'd be under the uniform control and security procedures. They're compliant with the ABCC guidelines as they're listed on the ABCC website as far as your alteration of premises. They in no way have any instance that any of the recent ABCC decisions concerning public need, common good, and alteration of premises would, anything we're doing would be in violation of that. So we would ask your approval for our petition.
When you say alteration of premises, so you're saying if you wanted to alter the premises after if the board was to approve encapsulating this whole area?
If in fact you can't, as your counsel knows well, you can't grant us the alteration of premises unless the license we have there is approved to move out. There can't be two licenses at the same premises. So if in fact you do vote for the Splitsville transfer, then we seek your approval to then take that space for our NPS license.
Okay, but to answer my question,
I'm sorry.
if you were to take the new layout of the Gillette Stadium to encapsulate all the areas that you want to do anything else to those premises in the future, would you have to come back to the board for an alteration
Yes.
hearing again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, absolutely.
Okay. 'Cause it's,
Such as any new structures.
Any structures, anything.
any questions from the board, Lorraine?
So, I just want to understand now that you have traffic, you have people who gain entrance to a game through the bubble now, and so you have direct access in and out of the stadium through the practice fields, is that,
Yes.
and that happens right now?
Yes,
Did
that's
that
happened.
happen last year?
Yes, it's happened that way since 2000, since 2002. when we
So
opened Gillette
once they
Stadium.
show their tickets in the bubble, they no longer have to show they're in, basically?
Yeah, once they're in, yes.
And so there's no other gate for people to go through to get into the stadium?
No, and practically speaking, the route is once they come and they enter in down this ramp here. But when they exit the field house, they come up here to this pathway and they enter through this gate. So that's, it's a little talked about fourth gate, but it is one that we utilize first solely for the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse. And then from a public safety concern, once this group, and this functionality on game day ends 30 minutes before kickoff. So once this group is in, we open up this gate to the general public to alleviate pressure from the rest of the base. And those folks come in straight through this way, through this gate. But the folks who are here on game day, once they're in, their route into the stadium is all within the fence line. So they never leave that fence line before getting to their physical seat.
Timber.
I knew that was gonna happen.
Does that clarify that for you, Lorraine? Do you have any more questions? Ginny?
I think Mr. Colbury mentioned last week that if the alteration of premises is not granted by the Board of Selectmen, you can still get like one-day liquor licenses for both the bubble and the practice field, correct?
I don't think I mentioned that, but my understanding of the
Yes,
law
you
is
did.
consistent with that.
Yes, you did. Okay, thank you.
It would be beer and wine only,
Well, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have full liquor license one day
Mhm.
applications. James?
No questions for the applicant, probably under deliberation.
Okay, John?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Motion?
Motion to end the public hearing?
Second?
All's in favor? Okay. Okay, you want to start with you, James,
Actually, I want to read this first.
if you like? Yeah.
Okay, this is just some guidelines that we've been given to help us in deliberations. And title is liquor licenses, facts to consider when issuing a license. 1, licenses do not have to be issued. There are no penalties for not issuing a liquor license. You should think about the public interest, public need, protect the common good, determine an adequate number of places at which the public may obtain the different sort of beverages.
Right.
What is the appropriateness of a liquor license at a particular location? Consider the number of existing businesses in their location in the community. Other factors for the selectmen to consider are traffic, noise, parking, the type of operation that carries the license, and the number of licenses currently issued in that category. So this is what's on our mind as we're going to discuss this.
Well, you have the table, John. Do you have any questions?
Well,
Most
you know,
of
the
it
thought
comes
of
word for
expanding
word
it,
from the town.
you know, I honestly, I wasn't aware that that first section had already been incorporated. I found out today, you said it happened in 2008?
8. Or 8.
2008? Okay.
Which portion?
That
Practice fields?
practice field?
The practice field, I believe, and I just could not find it in my records, but the town has it in their records, that I know for a fact that the lower practice field was incorporated within the 2003 license. Because in that license application, the map attached, which was referenced, is this map right here. But since my paperwork, I became the manager of Gillette Stadium in 2003, so my paperwork doesn't predate that. And we did a search back there. But my belief, since I don't have an alteration of premises in 2003 for that when the board assigned the license, the redistributed license, because in 2001 we had Foxborough Stadium. In 2002, before we opened, there had to have been a process to take the Foxborough Stadium license and move it to Gillette Stadium. So my understanding is when the stadium opened in 2002, this is the map that was approved by the board. I do know for a fact that this is the map that was in place in 2003. So for the last 11 years, the lower practice field has been included in the Gillette Stadium license.
Yeah, I'm looking at, this is addressed to you, Jim Nolan. And it's a Gillette Stadium, which is enclosed by perimeter fencing and gates at designated locations, and includes the stadium, the outline, or the area outline between Lot 8 and Lot 10 to the terminus of the North End Plaza. Also includes the luxury suites and concession stands. The subject area is shown on the attached Plan A entitled Gillette Stadium, all alcohol beverage license, footprint dated 7/18/08. Is that?
Yeah.
That's because that's
No.
Lot 8 and Lot 10.
Yeah, now that one from 7/18/08 is the red outline that you see here. So that in 2008 is what went into place. So this red line replaced this black line in 2008.
Okay.
And as you can see too, also in 2002 or 2003, the footprint also extended to a similar type area outside the stadium heading out toward Route 1.
Okay, so you're saying that this altered premise only included the bowl in the front section? Or did it actually then include the
It
practice
continued,
fields?
it continued to include the practice fields.
Okay, the practice fields predated this.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, okay.
That practice field was in.
Yeah, then from what my understanding is that practice field predated this
Yes,
altered premise
that's
application, yeah.
Anything else, John?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
You right?
I'm all set for now. Thanks.
Jenny?
Is that helpful?
I think that's the same.
No, that's the 08 one,
Okay.
which mirrors that one there. But that's the actual document that was submitted with the alteration in 2008.
Right, that goes with this.
Gene, you
I'm
good?
going to defer to Jim and then
James?
come back to me.
Sure. A quick question. Council DeLuca, thank you for giving us a packet. You had a lot of case law and a lot of exhibits and procedures. And if I understand it correctly, such to take into consideration such factors when you're looking at an extension or an alteration, such as traffic, noise, size of operation that carries a liquor license, and the reputation of the applicants and the opposition of the neighborhood. And those are certainly something that I'm capable of understanding and evaluating. Councilor Miller just handed out a memorandum and simply says, due to the fact that this extension entirely complies with the guidelines established by the ABCC and further initiates a public want. All the information that you provided to us is very informative, but I couldn't find anything in here that you evaluated the application and says it does comply with the ABCC, just a simple recognition of that.
And the reason is, frankly, that's your judgment to determine whether or not it does. It's fair to say that this is a unique situation, not the typical alteration of permit case that may have found itself winding its way through the court system up from the ABCC. What I did include, however, in the packet of information that I provided to you in the memo was as an exhibit those regulations provided by the ABCC that seek to provide some guidance on alteration, guidelines for extension of premises, in this instance to patio and outdoor areas. There are at least 7 considerations articulated by the ABCC. Now, admittedly, most of those deal with restaurants that have 4 walls that want to expand either up or out in some way or another, and those standards apply in that instance. In this case, there's a request to extend hundreds of feet, acres perhaps, and you need to evaluate the extent of control that is required under those circumstances. It's also instructive to review, and I included a statute, I believe it's Chapter 10, Section 74, which requires a certificate of inspection of all areas to be licensed. And I know that as a matter of routine, your board requires that, of course, that any premises that is to be licensed requires that it be inspected. Well, the language of that statute, very plainly states the certificate of inspection shall attest to the safety of the building or the structure in which the applicant intends to sell alcoholic beverages to be consumed on the premises. It assumes a structure, a license for a structure, a building that is a premises. This, again, in an unconventional way, is requesting that the licensed premises encompass more than one structure. Therefore, obviously, requiring multiple inspections of different structures. We don't have any precedent for that. It's a different kind of request, and it's your board's ability to evaluate the wisdom, practicality, and reasonableness of doing that. So I mean that's the guidance I can give you. I can't tell you as we sit here today whether it's right or wrong. It's just you need to weigh the advantages and disadvantages.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I think that's where my head was from the last time that we transferred from the Saga out. We were focusing on the statute where it talked about brick and mortar, and our inspector went in there and looked at doors and portholes to get from one to the other, where this is different. It just seemed like there's nothing in here that addresses that, but I think you just answered my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Jenny, you ready, or?
Did you
Go
want to?
ahead, Jenny.
Oh, from what I can remember reading, you gave us a lot of material to read. when you alter the premises, don't you also have to be able, it's more like a line of sight, so you have to be able to really see the additional space if you're gonna alter the premises. And when I was down, when I did do a walk through of that area, and it was quite a distance from the main stadium. And my concern is you already had 2 licenses up there that you have given away freely. You have given it to other locations. And so my question is, why should we now alter the premises to accommodate, to give you actually, in all practical purposes, the ability to have liquor sales under what was formerly 2 licenses? It's almost like you're having your cake and eat it too. You've given up 2 licenses for 2 other areas, but now you're altering the premises so that you can combine those, and so they still have liquor licenses anyway. And as I said last time, Mr. Colbury had mentioned that, well, if this doesn't fly, we can just do one-day liquor licenses. So that's I'm more inclined to go that route.
If I may, I don't think that my actual quote was what you're attributing to me, so if we could change
it was
that.
the chairman that suggested.
Yeah, I think the chairman suggested it and I acknowledged it, but thank you.
But it still stands that one-day liquor licenses could be obtained for those 2 different areas, because you yourself said you don't really use them that often.
Well,
And you have the ability to get a specified number per year of one-day liquor licenses. So in essence, even if we don't grant the alteration of premises, you will still have the ability to have functions at the Dana-Farber bubble and also at the lower practice field.
At the discretion of the board to apply for a one-day beer and wine license.
But they
only.
still have the ability to do that.
I'm just trying to make sure you don't say liquor license. I'm trying to make sure you understand, and so that nobody else gets confused out there. It's beer and wine only.
And I would say that with respect to the tailgate party for Patriot games, that hard alcohol is a real component of it. It's a necessity to operate the tailgate party, just from the amount that the corporate customers are paying and how they want to treat the guests that they bring to that location. That a beer and wine license would not be sufficient for those particular events, which happen at every Patriots game.
And if I might, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
Well,
if
then-
it pertains to answering the question, yes.
There is no requirement for line of sight. The requirement is control of the premises, and that's been consistent in several of the ABCC decisions. There's absolutely no requirement. The requirement is control. And I believe on the walkthrough that we did with you and Selectman Gray, the chief investigator was there and said if this board approved it, he would recommend it as the chief investigator to put in front of the State Liquor Commission for approval, and he would expect that they would approve it.
Counsel, you concur with that?
Well, it's, I think in this instance, they're both right. I mean, the line of sight rationale is a key component of control. So in this instance, you've had significant testimony from the applicant that they are able to maintain control despite the vast size of the proposed licensed premises, that they have regulations in place, they have protocols, and so on. But the conventional understanding of these kinds of control of licensed premises is you have one manager who manages the 4 corners of the licensed premises, will remain responsible at all times and on premises, so that you can rely that anything that occurs on the premises, you've got someone that can respond and respond quickly. Now, whether or not that can happen here, again, is a matter of judgment, and whether or not you can be satisfied from what the applicant has been able to provide to you, that resolves that issue of control, and obviously, having a sideline and ability to respond quickly is what's important in the analysis.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
In Section 12, it does mention, Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12 does mention stadiums, and several racetracks have been approved as stadiums with multiple buildings. Also, in-holders licenses in the state have been routinely, multiple buildings have been granted under the same license. And finally, most recently, over the past several years, there was a decision on golf courses where not only the golf course building, but also the entire premises and outbuildings have been licensed. So there are multiple precedents for this.
Yeah, I've had some history on golf courses. John?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
To our council. If events were held there that required a ticket, in other words, the public was invited to an event, and these are on the properties, would the ticket be treated in the same way as if a ticket was purchased for an event inside the stadium?
I need some clarification. If there is a ticket that's purchased to an event at the Dana-Farber, for example.
Right.
That's what you're asking?
Yeah, and if we were to expand the perimeter to include that, would all that property then fall under the lease agreement?
My understanding of the lease agreement is that it itself defines a perimeter, that the leased premises has a very clear defined limit that's not consistent.
Okay,
with
so
the-
this is an expanded perimeter only for liquor service, period. It has nothing to do with any other situation or any other agreement?
That's my understanding of reading
Okay.
the lease, sure.
Okay.
And Selectman Gray, with respect to Patriot games, that as a policy, no one can get into the field house without a game ticket.
Oh, I
So-
know that.
yeah.
I'm thinking of events that, apart from NFL football games, like charity events or something like that where a ticket is purchased. Is that consistent with your thinking that that would not fall under the ticketing or the licensing agreement?
You're referring to the stadium
The
license?
stadium licensing?
Yeah, the stadium license leased premises basically end at the end of the stadium before the practice field.
Okay.
And so it's restricted to the stadium proper.
Okay.
Good question.
And one other question is, if we were to incorporate the field house, would that change any way or change how you are required to have detailed uniformed officers for an event?
No, and I think there's two pieces on that. First of all, with respect to any stadium event, so I'll call that Revolution concerts, Patriot games, and other events. We host a all-agency meeting every Thursday before every event. So I meet with the chief 47 times a year. And at that meeting, we go over the whole security program. So in the example of the Patriot tailgates, Chief O'Leary deploys officers in that location while it is operational. If we were to have another event in there, then we fall under the guidelines for reporting to the chief. So that if we reach a certain number of patrons, and we submit that, whether the event's in the club or whether the event's in the field house, once we hit the required thresholds, we report that to the chief on a monthly basis, and then the chief makes a determination as to whether he requires, at his sole discretion, a detail for that event or not. And I think the other thing from a stadium perspective too, and I think the chief can attest to this, there have been events that do not fall in line with the regulation. And we reach out to the chief and say, Chief, we're not required to tell you about this, but we'd like to have a detail. Because our ultimate goal is to be safe at all times. So the regulations help us to be safe, the agency meetings help to be safe. But if myself or Mark Briggs determine that's an event that doesn't fall under that umbrella, a prom, for example, that if we have a prom that we want to have a detail on, we'll call the chief and we'll provide a detail. So that's kind of a long-winded way of answering it, but for Patriot games, there are people in there, there are uniformed police officers in there, and we meet with the chief before every one of those.
John, you're good?
Almost said, thank you.
All right?
Well, for now.
David, so in order to have the bubble, if it was not in this perimeter, if there was not a license there, in order for them to have like a one-day all alcohol, there would have to be a sponsor, is there
Yeah,
a
just,
situation?
I think that's a good question, and just to clarify, because I know it's confusing. The one-day license statute permits for-profit organizations to request from your board a one-day license up to 30 per year. That would be for beer and wine only. If it were a nonprofit, they make the same request, 30 per year, but there may be a grant of all alcohol to a nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a subtle distinction in the statute that exists, so that depending upon what corporate form they were coming before you, it could dictate whether it was beer and wine only or all alcohol.
And is it 30 for each, or is it 30 in total?
30 in total for the year.
Annually.
Yes.
Anything else, Tony? Thank you. Jenny?
No, well said.
James?
Just one scenario that, thinking to the future, and we've run into this with the board before. In the not-so-past, there used to have, obviously, 3 separate licenses. One went to Saga. Now we have 2 licenses, and if this works, then we're gonna have basically 3 separate premises that are combined now under one entity, one license. So what happens when there's a function at the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse, a wedding or a prom or something, and there's a violation, okay? In the past, when we've had event violations, and you're familiar with our liquor regulations that have been refined over the years, but basically it could be summed up as a strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. Each strike has ramifications. If an event happened in the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse, where this is now spread so thin that there's only one license, and we do a one-day suspension or a one-day event, does this board have the fortitude, integrity, whatever you want to call it, to say a day is a day and have it affect a 70,000 person event because there's only one license? You don't have the ability to separate it anymore. Not really the board's issue, but it's a fallout from what's happened over the last couple of years here. So that's something I think we need to consider in our what-if scenarios, because it's not the case right now.
Any response?
Well, I mean, that issue is an issue we face right now with the stadium license, right? It's just a matter of degree. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate issue by any stretch of the imagination, but what I'm suggesting is, compared to other licenses, we certainly do a tremendous number of transactions, and we do a very, very good job in terms of making sure those transactions are done responsibly. I think that will continue in the stadium, and I think that if you grant this alteration, that same philosophy will apply to the other premises that we seek to expand to. So it's a legitimate question, no doubt about it. I think that we do a superior job, and we will extend that superior responsibility to these other locations.
But just so on the record, that's the concern. So a year from now, if it's a Saturday event and you don't have the intensity of the control because it's a charity on a Saturday morning and there's no game, it will carry over potentially the same issues.
And Selectmen develops, I would say that we apply the same standards, whether it's, we had a great event in our club the other night. We had 800 people for Beth Israel Deaconess. It was a great gala. We apply the same standards to that crew as we would to a Revolution game and a football game. So our diligence is universal and the same when we serve alcohol.
Thank you.
But just as a reminder, we would also apply our standards, same standards, to whether a violation happens at the stadium or a violation happens at any other liquor serving establishment.
We are not asking to be treated any differently. We hope to be treated as well as anyone else.
Okay. John?
Obviously this enterprise is growing. That's a good thing. But as you grow, is this the end of your request for expanding the perimeter? Or say you were to build another practice field in the back, would you ask for that to be incorporated into the perimeter? In other words, is this the end of the requests?
Well, the good news is the request we're making now is coincident with the fence line. So for us to come back here, we'd have to do an expansion and extend the fence line in some direction. And that's just not planned right now. Do things change? Certainly they do. But at this point in time, the short answer is no. We don't have any plans to do any further expansion of the fence line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lorraine, anything else?
So the purpose of the expansion is to free up the liquor licenses.
The purpose, the reason we're here looking for an alteration of premises is so that we can serve all alcohol in the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse and also in the other practice field. As we've said before, we think that this is the type of thing that should be granted because we have a fence line around that entire area, making it one continuous premises. There's sole control. Jim is the manager for that entire premises. We conduct ourselves very responsibly, and we think we can do it. Now, practically speaking, as I think you all know, the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse does not open every day of the year. So the liquor license that's on that property right now is a relatively underutilized liquor license. And we're not planning on having wholesale changes to what we do at the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse. We're planning on conducting our operations after this alteration is approved in pretty much the same manner as we're doing it right now. That's the practical reality of what we're doing as we sit here.
Anything else, Lorraine?
So does that mean this is to free up that license?
I'm not really sure what you're getting to by that point. My answer is we serve alcohol in that Dana-Farber Fieldhouse presently. We do it responsibly. We don't utilize that alcohol license every day of the year. What we're hoping to do with this alteration of premises is continue that same format, where we wouldn't have any greater intensity of use or service of alcohol tomorrow than what we do today. So that's, we think that's a better utilization of those assets.
Freeing up the license to be used somewhere else?
I mean,
Is it better utilization, is what you're saying, is a better utilization of that asset?
as I said, I'm not really sure what freeing up means, but what I'm saying
Moving
is,
that license, not having a
yeah, I
license.
mean, if you're asking, are we asking to have that license transferred to Splitsville? Absolutely, no doubt about that.
Counsel,
Yes, sir.
are there any penalties for underutilizing a license?
No. It certainly, if a license is not used, it could be considered abandoned and should be returned to the licensing authority. I don't think we're hearing that.
No, I'm just wondering.
But there is no penalty. There's no requirement that it be used 1 day, 3 days, or 5 days, or that it be used 7. It's the privilege of being able to serve alcohol within, a prescribed time.
Just wanted clarification on that because it just got brought up, that's
Sure.
all. Lorraine,
So
anything else?
the acreage on Lot 8 now does not serve alcohol, so that would we would be reestablishing alcohol service on Lot 8?
I can't see.
Yes.
That's the
Yes,
the one that went to Saga.
yes.
It's encompassed. It's on map 2.
It's
Okay.
encompassed within this perimeter fence line.
Okay.
So the middle picture is what we're trying,
Yes.
that's what we're debating about, is what I should say.
Yeah.
All right.
If-
Lorraine, anything else?
I just want to add, just again for clarification, that it is the stadium perimeter, which is the leased premises, which is subject to the provisions of the agreement between the town and the stadium, and that
In lieu of tax.
in lieu of taxes. The other areas, practice fields and Dana-Farber, remain on the tax rolls, if you will, and subject to assessment and taxes in the usual form that other commercial property would be assessed and taxed here in Foxborough.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
as
if
we
I-
approach the 8:30 hour here, my understanding is that you do not want the board to vote on this until after we continue the discussion deliberation on Splitsville.
It's whatever the board's,
I thought that's what I heard from their counsel saying. Excuse me?
I thought Mr. Miller said you can't.
I'm just looking for some guidance here. You guys got all the PhDs. All right, so, all right, did I hear you correctly say that we
Well,
cannot
you
change
can't
the
grant-
alteration of this premise?
Well, no, you can conduct your deliberations and vote as you see fit. There's a practical consideration here, which has to do with, because of the relationship between the two requests, which should come first, which should come second. Frankly, I'm not really sure. It's whatever the board feels is appropriate. But from an operational standpoint, a public hearing standpoint, you've done your job. You've conducted 2 hearings. You've closed the 2 hearings. You've conducted your deliberations. So you can vote in whichever order you feel is appropriate.
Now, if there was a motion in the positive to alter this, would that motion have to be with the consideration of the other license being approved?
No.
Okay.
No. You have 2 distinct hearings, 2 distinct requests. This hearing and this vote is simply on whether or not to alter the premises as has been requested.
Okay. Jeannie, anything else? James?
Nope, I'll take a shot at a motion if no one else has one written down.
I have nothing written down. I'll listen to a motion, entertain one.
Mr. Clerk, do you have anything? No?
Okay, where are we? You want to close the public hearing?
We already did.
We've already done that.
Okay.
We've already done that.
So we need an affirmative motion to adopt the changes to the perimeter and accept the license petition.
Mhm.
That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, so the motion by John Gray, second by Lorraine Brew. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Wait a minute.
More discussion, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I spent about 5 hours on this today, I want to get it out, so. With this right here, the pros are, it frees up a liquor license to use for another business at Patriot Place. And the concept being that the one license for the stadium should be expanded to cover more territory, apart from the property described in the stadium lease. That's the alteration of premise. The cons are, while the applicants will certainly benefit by extending the stadium alcohol license to outlying areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, there doesn't appear to be any enhanced benefit to the town. In other words, well, let me finish, and then.
I'll,
Coincident
Yeah, okay.
with the lease agreement, that's why I asked that question before. And by doing this, it appears that if you're looking for an all-alcohol license to cover that, and an all-alcohol license to cover Splitsville, what you're doing is you're creating, by expansion, a license out of thin air to cover that. Right now, you have an all-alcohol license for that area. You need an all-alcohol license for that area. You've got it, okay? This is really not about that, because you've got what you want right now. What you want is a license for Splitsville. That was Lorraine's question. Is that right?
Mm.
So, and then, but just so you know, I know you need a full liquor license for the field house, but I really do favor, even for charity events, I favor the current perimeter and one-day licenses. So, now if you want to vote, you can.
okay. You want a rebuttal?
If you don't mind. My understanding of the liquor licensing statute is that one of the reasons why municipalities are allowed to grant liquor licenses is to spur economic development and to improve their tax base. Right now, the license at the Dana-Farber Fieldhouse, as I said before, is underutilized. We don't utilize it 365 days a year. With the 2 applications that you have before you, that liquor license will become much better utilized. And that will certainly result in better economic development. I think the testimony from last week was, $4.5 million of additional capital investment, 125 jobs, I think was the number I heard, and somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 of incremental tax revenue to the town. That's revenue that the town is not receiving right now. That's the benefit to the town. Are you going to be receiving additional user fees under the stadium lease? No, that property is beyond the stadium lease property. But by adopting these 2 or approving these 2 applications, you will be improving the economy here in Foxborough. You will be spurring job creation, and you will be creating additional tax revenues for the town.
Jeannie?
you can still have, you can still transfer the license from the Dana-Farber, even if we do not approve the alteration of premises, because that's your prerogative. If you want to apply to move that license to another entity. So it doesn't mean that we have to alter the premises. If you decide that you would like to use the Dana-Farber license for another entity. We're not compelled to alter that license in order for you to transfer the Dana-Farber liquor license to someplace else. It's up to you if you want to apply to that. And so we are not compelled to alter the premises to accommodate your decision to move that license to someplace else.
I understand.
Okay. Well, I just want people to
It's
understand that
totally
also.
within your discretion.
So I think, I mean, at the end of the day, and we're kind of all using different terminology, but they went from 3 licenses, they're gonna go down to 1, and there's gonna be 2 offshoots to 2 different entities. And I think the discussion, although there's 2 separate topics here, is there more benefit to do this than leaving it the way it is, or, playing around with having day licenses here and things like that. So, the economic benefit, sure, there is gonna be increased jobs, and there's probably a page of positives. And there are also negatives that come with increased alcohol, and that's where the mitigation comes in. So I think we all understand what, whatever terminology of moving it around, but at the end of the day, I think what we're voting for in 2 steps is 1 license here and 2 licenses off-site, which used to be together at one point. So
For the history, the licenses came from where? The 3 different liquor licenses that were originally at this, encompassed by the stadium fence. One was from the old track.
Actually, Chief O'Leary has a much better memory than I do, because I forgot that the track kitchen had a license. I think that may be where the 3rd license came from originally.
So there were actually 3, this is what I got out of it, 3 original licenses encompassed by one area.
It all depends
whole
upon
thing.
what time frame you're talking
Yeah,
about, but when the new stadium was created, there were certainly 3 licenses that covered the areas that are shown over here. Yes. Prior to the new stadium, I believe they came from the old stadium and the racetrack, some combination of those 2 facilities
And the racetrack had 2, one the kitchen, one somewhere else.
in the actual
I
clubhouse
mean, we
area.
have to get the townies in here, they used to work there to figure this one out, I guess. And figure something
But in
out.
any event, Mark, these are not 3 that came from the last mitigation.
No, I understand that.
Or Patriots Place. So, I mean, one's already gone. My feeling is I'm more comfortable if what they're saying, and I agree from my experience, it's 3 separate licenses, now it's 2 separate licenses, but in any event, it's managed by the same police effort, same coordination, same logistics. So if we're gonna either have 2 separate ones right now or 1 together, my preference is to have 1 together rather than have day licenses
Right.
where
I
they
mean,
come, so if you wanna have them at each home game, then you're dealing 7 or 8 times, 7 applications, 7 managers' issues.
and a
I'd rather
lot
have
of
one entity
paperwork,
control it.
and a lot of paperwork for Sandra Herman and the team down at Town Hall, and a lot of requests here to this board.
If there was a
It's
benefit to
it's
keep
gonna-
it separate.
It's
I-
gonna be a weekly experience.
Yeah, but Mark, you shouldn't be considering paperwork and extra
Why not?
work for,
Why not?
no, because you have to,
We're inundated by it every day. This is all we talk about up here is alcohol. It's 60% of our job. So, and when I have to listen to the secretaries and other people that work for the town saying, they don't have enough. Sandra's working alone right now. I think it's a consideration I have to understand. She doesn't have her assistant anymore. So I think it's,
I think what you have to consider is the increase in the area if you're increasing the perimeter.
and I concur.
And the fact that at one point you had to have 2 licenses, I mean,
And I was
why if,
I was
Wait a minute.
piggybacking on what Jimmy said, that he was more comfortable with one area totally encompassed by the fence. I agree with that. On top of that, he was going to the point where he said, you're gonna be coming here more more every other week looking, or every week looking for a one-day beer or full alcohol license, which I was incorrect on. I apologize for that. But I don't want to be dealing with that every hearing.
No, but, well, the thing is, if these two licenses, I mean, why wasn't this requested before? It's being requested now because they're using those two licenses for two other locations, and then what they're doing is increasing the perimeter. So they're having their cake and eat it too. They're continuing to have the same privileges under one license now that they had under three. That's all I have to say.
And that's what business is all about. I mean, the people looking to expand opportunity. I think it's a place to start. I was very confused by this when this all first came about. I'm now very clear on what's going on because I've had multiple attorneys explain it to me. One that we hired for special counsel because we weren't too comfortable with the first counsel. He's come out in front and said that it's up to our discretion. My interpretation of this whole thing is, I think it's a good idea. I think it's economically a good idea. Whether or not you grant the license to the next entity is all about the next hearing. But you know what? I like the concept. I agree with it. And if I lose another vote, it's no big deal. I'm not going to get all upset about it. Does anybody else need to be heard on this matter? Lorraine?
I just want to say that I think that the way it's managed is good right now. Personally, I think that, I believed that the Hall of Fame should have kept the original license. It should not have, in looking back and looking at the structure and having done a walkthrough and reading the regulations, I viewed that as a separate entity, so that's where I come from in terms of looking at this. So I'm comfortable with the Bubble having its own license, and I think, I'm not really in favor of adding additional acreage to the license because we're talking 24 acres on the stadium, and now this increases it to approximately a footprint of about 140 acres under one license. I have a concern about that control-wise. I'm comfortable with the control on the Bubble as it is.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor?
Can you just read the motion again so we can,
Can you read the motion, Brad?
please?
We were sketching.
It's okay.
It was to accept the alteration of premises.
Yeah, as submitted by the applicant.
Can I make an?
Affirmative.
To basically, Jim, to accept that plan.
Okay.
Okay, you want to say something?
I just wanted the motion to reflect some of the discussion, and I'm going back to what the case law is, that we did consider, after considering such factors as the traffic, the noise, the size of the operation, the carrier of the license, the reputation of the application, and the lack of opposition. Those were in my mind, that I think it's important to have in the record.
Seeing that we have none, no opposition.
I think that's one of the factors. So I'm just trying to be a little,
So I think if you're going to insert that, you should go back a little further, and that we considered whether the fencing and other proposed modifications enable the licensee to maintain control along with those other
Yeah.
things.
But is the fencing a modification?
Yeah.
If the fencing is there.
So do you want to strike your motion, John, and redo the motion?
We're gonna have to construct a motion.
Yes, all right.
Because we got Jim's
I
piece.
think
and
it just,
Lucy's.
it makes it a little less arbitrary when we're going forward.
Can you write
in the
out what you
future.
just said, or can you
That's
give
right.
us,
Is it off of this?
is it,
It's right there.
I know, Jim's
Underline.
is off this, right?
It's off of, sections off of page 3 from Attorney DeLuca's memo.
Page 4 right here.
starting where?
Selectmen considered,
Oh, yeah.
selectmen considered.
To here.
Just put.
If you want to take another shot at reading it, and if you want to do shorthand.
Well,
Okay.
you need to.
No, I got it.
You need to, before we go any further, you need to withdraw your motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion, as previously submitted.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a new motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the the new perimeter plan as submitted by the applicant. Also, the Board of Selectmen considered whether the fencing and other proposed modifications enabled the licensee to maintain control, along with considering traffic, noise, size, and type of operation involved in the reputation of the applicant.
And lack of opposition from the neighborhood.
And a lack of opposition from the neighborhood. Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, done with discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion loses 3-2. Okay, moving forward, we're gonna continue
Thank you.
deliberation on the, transfer of all alcohol license, restaurant license to change the location to Splitsville.
Do you have the agenda?
Yeah, it's right here, John. Okay, this here, public hearing was closed. Does anybody wish to reopen the public hearing before we continue?
Can I just mention, we allowed commentary on Splitsville during the other public hearing. I
Yeah.
think if there are people who need to comment, I
Yeah.
think they may have been waiting for the Splitsville.
Yeah, I
I think it would be fair
I-
to,
That's-
do you allow it as citizens' input? Do we have to reopen the public hearing?
Well,
You'd have to reopen.
we have to reopen the public hearing, because that's exactly what I'm getting. I think the statements made in the first public hearing, that people didn't realize that it wasn't a joint public hearing, it was two separate things. And I think all that statement should be put on the record that they made earlier on this public hearing. So we're gonna make a motion now to reopen the public hearing, just to see if anybody else wants to speak, and if not, we're gonna close it right back away. So, Lorraine, you wanna make your motion?
I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing that was opened initially on October 29th at 7:10 PM.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Does anybody from the public wish to be heard on Splitsville that hasn't spoken earlier on Splitsville? Seeing none.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? All right, okay. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us. Good evening. Thank you for your patience. And, we were in deliberation and discussion at that last time, if memory serves correctly, so I'm gonna just start on my left and go right to John. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, let me get my notes, hold on. Thanks for giving us a week to do some research. Last week I just got this information a day before, so I had a week to digest it. One thing I did is I called the Splitsville in Fairview, Texas, just to get a feeling for that operation. Young fellow answered the phone, and I asked about the hours of operation. I asked what type of an operation it was. And the guy who answered the phone said that, the vast majority of the business is bar and restaurant with a bowling theme, which I think is consistent with what you guys have said. They open at 11 on weekends. Children do go there. But he said there's no leagues or organized bowling groups. At night, they shift into a more adult environment. So I guess that's still the model that you guys are operating on. Okay. If you could, my only concern with this is actually the element where you've now co-located Howl at the Moon. I had intended to go into Boston to check it out. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. But I did go on Howl at the Moon's website. And the brand Howl at the Moon is, if you look at the website, there's an interactive video, and anybody at home who has their computer on, go to Howl at the Moon Boston and look at the video. The brand tells me that it's a party theme. They do serve large drinks, as Ginny pointed out. I wouldn't particularly call it a family environment. There was a section on the video where it looked like somebody with a caulking gun infusing an alcohol-laced gel into a woman's mouth. And I don't know how that can cohabitate with what's supposed to be a family environment. Can you help me here? Because I don't get it.
But can I ask one courtesy of the board real quick? On the off chance that my children are still awake, they thought it was pretty cool that you guys broadcast town meeting, so I just want to say hi to Grace and Jack. We're supposed to be in bed at 8 o'clock, if the off chance are watching. But can I answer by walking to the plan? Again, what we like about the Howl at the Moon concept is the quality entertainment. That's upside down. And I guess it's more of context. We won't serve big bucket drinks. We won't be doing Jello shots. I'm not sure about the caulking gun thing. We won't have that either. And just on the scale and the context, I talked last time, you're roughly from this point of the edge of the stage area to lane 4, 120 feet. I mean, you're very far away. So the context of Howl at the Moon Boston, which I believe is 25 to 3,000 square feet. I believe it's 21 and over from the time it opens.
Yep.
So it's completely different environments downtown Boston. Obviously a lot more active nighttime environment. So I think that the dueling piano in and of itself may or may not be conducive with families as it gets later into the night. I think that's one of the things we'll work with the crowd that we're drawing and with Chief O'Leary. But again, I think what we have, you've got 20,000 square feet, of which the vast majority is not centered right around the stage. You've got a full kitchen. We expect to do 70 to 75% of food and bowling, and you've got beer, liquor, and wine sales also. So I think it's just a completely different context, putting in this building with all the other atmosphere and entertainment going on. And again, we do live entertainment in other Splitsvilles, and it doesn't ever become the tail that's wagging the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, Selectmen, to point out we aren't opening a Howl at the Moon Patriot Place. We are not a family-oriented business, Howl at the Moon. But the component of Howl at the Moon, and all of Splitsville's other locations, they have a component of live entertainment in their businesses. Even in Disney, I think Chief O'Leary, when he's down there, he witnesses the live entertainment, and it wasn't particularly good in terms of a quality perspective. I apologize, Mark. But that is the core of what we're just trying to do. We're not trying to open a Howl at the Moon. We're not going to do the buckets. We're not going to do Jello shots. We're not going to do all the stuff you saw on the website. We are going to put on a very high-quality, entertaining form of live music. That's it. That's it. The rest of this business, the 90% of this business is Splitsville. You guys are approving a Splitsville, a Patriot Place. We're just the guys on the stage a couple nights a week. That's all it is. And I think the noise around the website and the noise around the buckets and is drowning out what we're trying to do here. And so I just want you all to be clear of what we are doing. I know and that is the essence of what we're asking to do out here. So I'm not asking you to let me open up a standalone Howl at the Moon at Patriot Place. And I would never become
The
redundant.
reason I asked is I looked at Howl at the Moon's brand.
Mhm.
That's when people think of Howl at the Moon, that's what they think of. It's a club, it's partying, it's drinking.
I disagree, respectfully.
The thing is, it certainly looked like drinking was the primary function on the website, and that's promoting your brand.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's what I got.
Yeah.
But the thing is, all I saw was 21 to 30-something-year-olds drinking. Period. That's all I saw. There was a flash of a piano, but there really wasn't any emphasis on the live entertainment component.
Well, I mean, all I can tell you that is the core of what Howl is. The entertainment is the core. We spend millions and millions of dollars a year strictly on entertainment, strictly on developing
You might
players.
want to change your website.
And that's the core of who we are. So, and that's what you'll be getting out here.
Why did you guys elect to cohabitate or co-locate? What makes these things? I don't know. What adds value if there's two of these together? Why not just Splitsville by itself?
Well, the goal is that one and one makes three from a revenue point of view. I mean, putting $4.5 million into anything, you need to be fairly confident that you can drive revenue. That's why we open as early as 11. We need to drive food, we need to drive bowling, and we also need to drive alcohol. We've operated combination businesses in the past. I'm good friends with Jimmy Bernstein, who was one of the founders of Howl at the Moon, known him for 20 years. We operated a Howl at the Moon side by side with a Stump Supper Club in Tampa. We opened a Howl at the Moon side by side with a Sloppy Joe's in Fort Lauderdale. So the idea of having, kind of, a lot of arrows in your quiver, so to speak, so that you can really, it's a competitive landscape out there. You need to drive business, and we have a very active social, interactive concept with Splitsville, and we do live entertainment now. That I think again the website's casting a long shadow over the Howl at the Moon side, but their entertainment is very proprietary. These guys are paid; they're employees of the club or the company, as opposed to, you know, if I book a 2-piece band or a 3-piece band, even in Orlando, they could be playing at my competition the next night. I have nothing that defines me as being distinct. The Howl at the Moon Entertainment, we can control them. We know what songs they're going to play. It works great for corporate events. We met with the director of sales and assistant director of sales of the Renaissance today. They are over the top excited about both sides because they run a lot of corporate business through Patriot Place, and they like the bowling side for kind of team building, and they love the Howl at the Moon, that we could bring in a Howl at the Moon show for a corporate event as part of an added amenity, so to speak. So they saw it as kind of 2 more amenities that they can help sell their individual property.
And I'd like to add, from the Patriot Place standpoint, we traveled around the country looking at various Howl at the Moon shows, and you know, and how you look at the website, but we looked at the quality of the entertainment. And again, entertainment is a small piece of what's happening at Splitsville. As you can see, the emphasis is on the bowling and the family aspect of the activity. But it truly is the quality of the players and where they're coming from. As Paul mentioned in the last meeting, you know, these are Berkeley School graduates, and this is their career. And that's the quality entertainment that we felt when these guys proposed it together. It made perfect sense when we went around and saw Splitsville, not just Boston. As you know, and we went to Tampa, we went to other locations, Jacksonville, and we saw it work because of the entertainment. Obviously, you know, not to rehash all the efforts we're making to ensure that we don't have issues with alcohol at Patriot Place. If that were the overriding factor, that you bring Howl and a drinking element to it, it wouldn't make sense for any of us to do that. We're bringing a quality entertainment small piece to a great use, and that is the bowling concept that Splitsville brings to Patriot Place.
It's a bowling theme, because the vast majority of people, if this is fully occupied, the vast majority of people are not going to be bowling.
Well, they'll be eating. They'll be. I mean, you talk about the amount of bowling that goes on.
It should be roughly 30% of sales. Again, it also depends, and the house show is going to be 2 nights a week. So the other 5 days, maybe 3 on Thursday. The other 5 days a week, it's going to be more about the bowling and the food. So it depends on what day of the week, what time of day. But your bowling revenue, that's the churn that has to go. I mean, bowling, again, I talked about last time. It's a happy sound. It's a happy activity. So the bowling is kind of the hook, but what's got to make it work, it's got to be about more than just the bowling. If you leave talking about anything besides bowling, we've done our job.
Well, that's it. The fellow in Texas said it's not a bowling alley. He said it's a restaurant and a bar with a bowling theme. You know, that's third. So you're not bringing a bowling alley. You're bringing a restaurant and a bar that happens to have a bowling alley.
We actually, at Splitsville, we actually treat bowling as a game, not a sport. We don't do leagues. It's all open play. Let's say that you want to go try to bowl, you go to a bowling alley, you're bowling beside somebody who's in a league, who's trying to pick up their spare, and you got your kids with you. This has happened to me in Tampa. It's not fun. I mean, you know, the guy looks at you like you're from a different planet because your kid's trying to bowl while he's trying to pick up his spare and win
something.
3-inch
putt and somebody yells out Noonan. I know.
Exactly. So it's about the fun of bowling, not about the sport of bowling. And we've been very successful at doing that. And it was when we opened up Disney, actually the president of Brunswick, which obviously all they care about is bowling, was excited that we were taking this concept and we were able to bring it out to the people that aren't normal bowlers. Because from a competitive bowling sport, the sport is on the decline. Being able to get kids to come in and learn how to bowl and have fun with it will hopefully get bowling back on an incline, because right now it's in a decrease.
Well, just one more question. I don't know if you mean theme in any kind of a non-positive way, but you know, there's still 12 lanes. It's going to be roughly 8,000 square feet, and it's going to be
No. The only reason I asked that is just to put things in perspective. If you've got a full house, the vast majority of people are not going to be bowling.
Or they're either going to be waiting to bowl. I will guarantee you that our grand opening weekend, we will be on probably a 2 to 3 hour wait for bowling on those Friday and Saturday nights because people are going to want to get in there. That's what happened in every one of our locations. But the other grade is also opening up at 11 a.m. You'll have families and kids bowling in there. So throughout the entire day part, there's a lot more bowling than you think.
Well, and just in Disney, which is, you know, not, it's a little bit of an amped up version. In that 30 lanes, we do more bowling games than any 30-lane center in the world. So, I mean, it's got to be about the bowling, but it's got to be about both. It's really, the whole circle has to work.
That has 30 lanes in it?
30 lanes.
Yes, sir. And that's on 2 floors and 50,000 feet. We've got 12 lanes here and about 20,000 feet. But it's kind of, and I think I said it last week, if we do our job correctly for your community, when you first walk in the door, the first word out of your mouth is going to be, wow, this doesn't look like a regular bowling alley. And then where we're going to bring you back is going to be the food, is going to be the service. And I talked about the first class of bowling. To be able to, you know, someone, a concierge walking into your lane with your bowling shoes and a basket, putting your name in the computer for you, it is totally different experience. It's even different than the other bowling alley, which I don't like to say the name of, that's not in this town. It really is. I mean, you'll be blown away when you walk into Splitsville, and you're going to be blown away in this one.
It's tough. And the Disney Food Blog just released a story on Splitsville yesterday, and we have 16 gluten-free menu items now. And it's just a competitive world. So we introduced rice bowls. We introduced some new sushi rolls. I mean, you just have to be, we think, at the top of your game across the gamut of what you do, which includes entertainment. So.
But you don't think that could stand on its own without Howl at the Moon?
In this location, I would not, obviously, it has stood on its own in other locations, but again, back to forgetting the website, the Howl at the Moon Entertainment gives you a leg up on anybody else because nobody else can easily wander into that. To train players, to give them enough shifts that they can afford to work for you, so to speak, and to be able to control. I mean, we've booked bands in Florida since 1990, whether it's solo guys, we had a house band at Stumps for 11 years, 6-piece house band. We did British invasion bands, we did 70s bands, we did 80s bands. It's hard to get entertainers to do what you want them to do. They're artists, they're full of drama, it's very complicated. So it's no small piece getting the piano players with talent to show up and play within the parameters and do it in a very strong fashion. I mean, it sounds easy, but to Guy's point, I'm fairly sure that our competitor 15 miles away isn't going to be able to match us in the entertainment.
Right, and that really is the reason we're so excited about this location. We feel like we're bringing the best in musical entertainment to the greatest concept in the world. And we think those two together will give us something that, I mean, from a standpoint, it'll be even almost kind of cooler than Disney, because I think you're bringing this together, and I think it's something really special. And I think Patriot Place in Foxborough is a special place. I mean, when I first came up here 2 years ago, I mean, I'm thinking, Foxborough, what are we doing? And then when you come here and see from the stadium, from the town, the community, you have the radius that you pull around from here to what the Renaissance is doing. I'm so impressed. I mean, I know I said it about the high school and the video, but I mean, the research that I've done literally hard over the last probably 4 to 6 months, there's a lot of business that we're going to be able to even create that is not at Patriot Place right now. We were there the other day, and they were doing the little trick-or-treater during the day, and they were going around and they were getting the candy at the different shops, and I look over at Gibson and I go, if we were open, those women and those kids would be bowling in Splitsville right now, which is a great thing.
Just for clarification, so you stated, Mark, 30% of it is bowling, so you stated that Splitsville's package is 30% bowling. How much percent food and how much percent?
40 to 45%.
70 to 75% bowling and food, the remainder being alcohol. So we do retail, and some, Disney is the only one that does retail, is a big factor. We may actually do a little bit of retail out of Patriot Place, given the.
Okay.
I thought you gave us different numbers last time.
The Howl.
No, that was the Howl.
That was how
Howl.
Austin was given,
Okay.
so very strong.
Just one last
food
question,
component.
just so we can clarify, is the maximum capacity 800 or 650? Numbers were flying around the last time we talked.
We hope for the highest occupancy that the building department will issue until we submit for a permit.
Do you know?
They have to submit and get
Oh, okay,
approval.
so we don't-
This is the standard
Yeah,
process.
we don't dictate. We'll hope for the highest, but that'll be the building official or the fire
Okay,
marshal.
all right, so it's undetermined at this point.
But the
Okay.
floor plan that was provided will remain the same, which is what is required of your process.
Thanks.
And what does the floor plan represent in population now?
I'm sorry?
The floor plan you submitted, you don't
The
have?
the
it?
application
The floor plan has
says-
been
Yeah,
provided to
yeah,
this board with
We
the
don't know
application.
until we get to the building
Nobody's approached the
department.
building inspector on this at all?
About what the Mac, not yet, no.
Lorraine, did you say you had a conversation about that with Bill?
Yeah, he estimated it at around 660, but the application says, I believe, 7.
That's right. The application
50.
says 750,
Yeah,
but
we-
we would have, this is how the process works,
So
obviously.
it's somewhere in between.
We would have a review from building and fire of the detailed plan and the build-out.
Right.
That would set it, but your requirements are that our floor plan be consistent with what you licensed, and that's what's in fact the case.
I guess the short answer is he'll tell us what our occupancy is.
Right. Well, I just wanted some clarification. John, you all set?
I'm all set for now. Thanks, Mark.
Lorraine?
I just want you to know that I think, the concept of Splitsville, it's wonderful. It's great to see your enthusiasm. My focus is on public safety, and so really I kind of peel Splitsville away with the mix of your sales is different from Howl at the Moon, which is where I start to focus. So I just wanted you to know that I think that this concept is terrific. Last week, I heard Ed talk about our statistics, and, again, I think our staffing levels, we're spread really thin in terms of our police force. I know there's work being done on enhancing the policing approach to managing Patriot Place. I just have a concern with such a large number of people in a venue. It's almost like at the same time as Saga coming up, we're bringing on the equivalent of another Toby Keith. And, I did talk about the 24J reports and, where we are in relationship to other much larger cities than us, putting out the same number of people who, do report Foxborough, not necessarily Patriot Place, but just Foxborough because of, as their last place that they had a drink. So I just need to put it out there that I'm very concerned about public safety with the venue of this many people. And the percentage of alcohol sales being 75% of the business related to Howl at the Moon, which is
25%.
75% of the evening.
Different here.
What is it?
It's hard to, I don't want to,
That's what you answered last week when I asked.
but we're not opening a Howl at the Moon out here respectfully, and I know I feel like I'm kind of beating myself over the head here. This is our food menu. This is not the food menu I serve in Howl, trust me. All right. The competency on food, the competency on non-alcohol related business is completely different. You can't even compare the two. The only thing we're doing is we're taking those 4 or 5 people that are on that stage a couple nights a week and putting them here as entertainment. The food component, the alcohol service, the bowling revenue, the children's entertainment, the layout, everything is consistent with a typical Splitsville. And so I hear the concern, but we're not opening a mini Howl at the Moon in the middle of a Splitsville. That's not what's happening today, or as part of this process. And I know it's kind of maybe hard for you guys to, think of it that way, but if you just took the Howl at the Moon name off of it and just said we're doing live entertainment within Splitsville, and don't even put the Howl at the Moon name on it, that's what we're doing. We're doing live entertainment at Splitsville, which they do in all their other markets. And that's how I think it should be viewed, in my mind. So the alcohol sales, the kid-friendly, all the stuff that goes, the white noise that's around Howl, I get completely. And like I said, I would never be in front of this board asking you for permission to open a Howl at the Moon out here, and we're not.
Unfortunately, Howl at the Moon is attached at the hip at this point.
Okay, let's move on from this.
But the testimony was on the percentage of alcohol was actually a fairly low percentage of alcohol based on Splitsville model, which is 30%.
No, the answer was 75%.
For Howl.
In Boston, which is a totally different concept and not what's being proposed here. What's being proposed is what is already being offered nationally, which has a low percentage.
Yeah, Lorraine, look at it this way. If we, in a regular Splitsville, we would still have that bar there.
Right.
We're not building a different bar because it's Howl at the Moon there. So we would have that stage up there and we would have a 2 or 3 man act up there playing. We'd be doing the exact same thing. So I think that's the reason, if you focus on it, the food sales to liquor sales are going to be 75 to 70% food and bowling, and 25 to 30% liquor sales, just like in every other Splitsville. We're just going to have better entertainment. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
And once again, I'll sit there, and even though he knocks us on our live entertainment, I think Splitsville is probably the greatest corporate convention venue in the world for team building. We do a ton of parties. I think in 9 months at Downtown Disney, a combination of parties, I think we've done right at 200 events. And a lot of them are 8-person birthday parties for kids. Some of them we're doing Major League Baseball next week for 900 in our space. So we kind of run the gamut. Number 2 is actually Howl at the Moon. They do incredible amount of corporate events. So I know what you're saying, John, on the website, but I'm telling you, that's a great people. The convention crowd, the corporate crowd loves that entertainment. I mean, they'll create a song for your company. So like, if you had, or for the city of Foxborough, let's say you were going to come and have a corporate event or holiday party there, and they would sit there and the entertainers would actually create a song talking about the Board of Selectmen or the Chief of Police or whatever. I mean, it's really fun stuff.
Board of Selectmen.
But I'm just saying, it's that kind of entertainment. I couldn't get my guys at Downtown Disney to create that to save my life. So I think if you look at it that way, that's really what we're doing here. And that, like I said, once again, that's the reason I'm so excited about it. I think we've got something that's really going to be special. So.
I think they sing about us, but not in a happy tune. Okay, you all
I'll
set,
definitely
Lorraine?
check
A lot
that.
of bleeps.
Yeah. We call it the blogging. Ginny?
Gentlemen, like I said last week, I think the Splitsville concept is fabulous. I really do. I think it would be a great addition to Patriot Place. And I think from what you said, your enthusiasm is so infectious. I question why don't you just go on your own? Because I really am concerned about, like John calls it, the Howl at the Moon brand. I cannot wrap my arms around it. Because we have a lot going on up at Patriot Place. There was a lot of drinking going on at Patriot Place. The number one complaint I get from the constituents in Foxborough is there is a lot of drinking up in Patriot Place. And why in God's name do we want to add more to it? And I think there's a big difference between the Splitsville concept, because it's bowling, it's food, it's drinking. But the Howl at the Moon, it's drinking and entertainment, but it's drinking. That's how it's, and even though you say don't pay attention to the website, you paid a lot of money for that website, for that stuff. And what you're promoting is drinking, And that's why I cannot combine them. And I feel like if you get one license, we're actually licensing 2 separate entities under one license. And I think that's being very disingenuous. And like I said, I love Splitsville. I really do. Everyone came in who spoke enthusiastically about Splitsville and bowling and food and everything. So that's why I just can't get the howl. I can't condone a Howl at the Moon.
Well, I think that...
If I may.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to let Jimmy say his state, and then I'm going to let you guys rebuttal, okay? Because it's getting repetitive around here. All right, you all set, Ginny?
I guess so.
Well, no, you didn't.
No, I said what I said last week.
Well, you think so,
the same
so
as this.
I'm not trying to cut you off.
Okay.
He was trying to cut you off.
No, I don't think he was drinking.
Well, that's why I saw
okay.
it. Okay?
All right.
James?
Sure. A little repetitive, what I said last week. You look at Patriots Place, you look at the sports, the football, obviously the NCAA, the college football, the Revolution. You've got a medical establishment, you get a hotel, you have retail, you have bars, and you have off different types of entertainment. I actually like the combination of Splitsville with Howl at the Moon, with the understanding, I like the brand name. you know, if you build it, they will come. So, you know, are you going to change over time? Is it going to turn into a Boston? You know, that's my concern. But I think it's, you know, and I also have kids, and I could see them coming here in the, you know, early afternoon, morning, and if, you know, they're there at night, then there's something wrong with the parenting skills. But I could go there later with adults, and so it serves a purpose similar to other things that have been done in Patriots Place, where you try to infuse stuff during the day where it's quiet, and then that kind of fizzles off, and then you get the night stuff going on. I think what it comes down to me is, and I said the same thing last time, how does it affect our public safety, and how does it cost the town? With the understanding that there are going to be jobs, there is development, there's going to be money coming in from meals tax. So there's a whole bunch of positives, but the detriment of having, you know, if you look at even the floor plan, you've got 12 bowling alleys. So if you've got, you know, 10 at each bowling alley, you get 120 people for bowling, and then the rest going up to 600-700 people are there for food and drink. Late at night, it's going to be less food, it's going to be more drink. So I understand the concern about being another Toby Keith's, which brings us some pain sometimes when we're dealing with the infusion of alcohol at night. So my question is, and it's not necessarily directed at you, but from our public officials' side and from our side, what is the pain level with respect to what are we going to be dealing with public safety, police, fire calls? And I go back to the mitigation and the exercise that was done for the first liquor license, and you look at the list of the concerns. Some of them came to fruition, some were concerns but never came to be. But how do we quantify that and qualify that so we can address it with the understanding that there is going to be alcohol and there is going to be problems, but it's our responsibility, if this goes forward, to make sure we're not behind the eight ball and trying to address it after the fact. So the mitigation is where I'm at right now. And I don't know if that, I understand there were meetings or some discussion with Chief O'Leary and whether it's communication or staffing, but I think that is an area that we need to discuss tonight as well.
And that's what I was gonna, after everybody spoke, I was gonna bring that up. So are you done, or do you want to continue, and then I'll bring that up, or you want to visit back?
No, and I mean, I've looked at the floor plan and I've looked at the concept, and other than Howl at the Moon and the websites, you know, and it's not to bring up other establishments. I go back to what we went through with Trader Joe's, and it was going to be another alcohol establishment, and there were promises made that the shelving and the service there of, you know, they're not going to be selling kegs and
$2
cases and all
or
that stuff.
something.
Yeah, and you know, I went to Staples the other day. It didn't open till 10 on a Saturday. I went to Trader Joe's, and it's exactly what was promised, and it was very good to see that that the words were kept and concepts were kept after they got their liquor license, and I'm hoping this is going to go the same route. And all due respect, when you're using words like disingenuous, up front, it's Howl at the Moon and it's Splitville, and the application said it. I think it would be disingenuous not to put Howl at the Moon to get their liquor license and then change it later. So I'm hoping what doesn't come to the press and the discussion is this is a disingenuous discussion we're having, because I think it's up front, and I think we just need to deal with the alcohol part of it.
All right, couple of things. Obviously, you read through the paperwork, somebody's 20% stockholders, 20% stockholders, 40, there's a difference here. So basic, correct me if I'm wrong. You were brought in, Paul, right?
Yes, sir.
As a 20% stockholder.
Well, the company that I have will own 40%
Okay,
of this
so
entity.
you want, all right, just so I, but your company controls all these entertainers. They can't just go play anywhere they want. Is that correct? Like a Don Law
Well,
presentation?
they're employees.
Can you explain
so
that to me?
They're employees. It's a right to work. They can quit and go work somewhere else. But
Okay.
while they're employees of ours, like any other business, they can't work anywhere else.
Is there a contract for a year, a month, or just, you know, contract labor, basically?
Yeah. They're just,
Okay.
just
I just
employees
wanted to
like everybody
understand
else.
that concept, but, so
But they're,
basically,
you know,
you're like almost an agent for these gentlemen and women.
Yeah, I mean, they're employees. They're salaried, they're 401k, their health benefits, like any other employee, which is different in the music world than what most people experience in the music world. That's what makes it different. This is careers. A lot of them, at least the older players, are married with children, and and it's a career for them.
I just wanted to understand that concept and make it clear. So basically, you've got some quality people. That's why
Absolutely.
these people approached you, and you guys are trying to make this work out so that it can be good for everybody. Okay. Well, obviously, you sense the concern that this board has for public safety. It always has. My opinion is, if you're going to put $4.5 million into a business, you're pretty serious. I don't think I'll ever see $4.5 million in my eternity of my life combined as a lifetime income. So the problem you could have in the future is you put all this money. It's happened in town where there's been multiple violations of liquor license establishments in town, where revocation has taken place and managers have been replaced, and most recently there was one that was just the last straw. So you're putting a $4.5 million investment into a building. The last thing you want to do is come in front of this board in the next year or less, or even longer, and say, yeah, we got a violation. Because you will have inspectors from the state. It'll be all kinds of stings. They're always constant. You'll be notified. Your staff will probably be notified. And you'll still feel, not yourself, but it happens all the time. People even know they're coming and they fail. So you have to be very proactive that if this liquor license does get granted, that if your clientele were to violate, the law, it's coming back to you. So I think you understand that. It's a big responsibility. One I would never wish on myself. I couldn't do your business. I wouldn't want nothing to do with it. Egg and breakfast place would be something for me. So I think that's a huge investment that you're taking seriously, and you really want this to succeed. Moving forward with that, I think, the board has its opinion, and it's been a stretch on public safety. So I reached out to Brian, and everybody kind of reached out to each other after last week's meeting, said, there seems to be concerns on the board. My acting town manager was not here, he was unavailable, so I had to utilize my CFO, Randy Scollins, to join us with Ed O'Leary, Brian, and Dan Murphy. We've met twice with me and Lorraine, right?
This morning.
Right. And there's been some discussion about the security at the stadium, working proactively with public safety. So now I'm reporting that to my board, because I have to eventually. Would Chief O'Leary and Brian like to discuss publicly what you've been talking about? So I think the chief needs to be sitting down, not standing up, more comfortable if we could amend him. And if that way he can explain to the board what Brian and him have been talking about to create a safe environment at Patriots Place and to address the concerns of this board, if that does address their concerns.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After the last meeting, we did leave that it was important for Chief O'Leary to get together with me and look at some ideas that he has already had and ideas that are still to come in terms of augmenting the public safety model for Patriot Place. I think it's fair to say that we've had 3 meetings. We've walked some physical space in terms of providing the chief with an area at Patriot Place for for lack of a better word, a supervisory level person to oversee what's happening at Patriot Place on a given Friday or Saturday night. Again, to reiterate, on any given Friday or Saturday night, there's anywhere from 8 to 12 officers at Patriot Place, and speaking for myself, looking at it from the operation, it's not a very well managed operation in terms of the details that are in certain locations. They do have communication between each other. There's not a great level of communication with Patriot Place Security right now. And I think the first step that we've talked about is determining a role for a test of a supervisory level person from the chief's department to at least start to coordinate and look at that existing model as a resource for all of the officers that are there. There are officers that are there, they're not even from Foxborough on a regular basis, just the way the details work out. So I have a lot of faith in what we're going to be working on in the near future. But initially, we're going to be looking at a supervisory level person coming in. And Chief, you can talk a little bit about the detail of that and what we're thinking about for the future.
Thank you, Brian. Over the last several days since the prior hearing, myself and Brian, Dan Murphy, the original meeting with both our finance director and Chairman Sullivan, we're trying to come up with a process that we could build an effective policing strategy for Patriot Place. There is communication between all the different officers that are working there, and again, it's a variable number. But I think a key component is to have a command level officer that would be able to oversee the operation of the different facilities and have a better span of control and be directly there. Currently, it falls upon whoever the evening shift commander would be, and along with running 3 or 4 cruisers to cover the town, he would also have the dispatch staff at the station, plus a number of details, whether it's a high school football game or the 8 to 12 officers that might be at Patriot Place. We had a follow-up meeting this morning, and I've prepared a draft of an initial concept that we'll be moving forward with to try and better prepare ourselves. We go to a lot of in-depth of testing different strategies, because not every strategy or concept works. But I wanted to implement this well in advance of any new openings to see if it will have the adjustment that will enhance the police capability at not the cost necessarily to the taxpayer, but as part of a detail on Patriot Place. And I'm confident that as we examine other models, that the model that we will pick would be the best one for the area that we're going to be working in. Because Patriot Place appears to be static right now, but I'm sure within the next few years, there'll be additional growth issues that we'll have to cope with.
Okay. So together, what I got out of the meeting, and Lorraine, you were at the second meeting. I apologize. Lorraine was only at the first meeting because she was on the second meeting because she was unavailable to make the first meeting because she was working. And I was suddenly available because I couldn't work that day. And when I was notified that Chief O'Leary and Brian were meeting, I wanted to have a selectman present, and I think, I always utilize the vice chair in her position, not only to help me, but to help herself becoming the chairman in the future, because it's most likely what's going to happen. And it's a tougher job than people think. So we had the first meeting, then the second meeting, and Lorraine was present. I saw a lot of good dialogue, and I saw what we need to be proactive for the future, not just later, but now, coming into the holiday season, with I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, it's been a long day, and this meeting seems like it's already 6 hours long. Okay, the stadium is willing to provide funding for a supervising sergeant
Yes.
on,
That is not correct.
okay, I'm looking for to be correct
The
here.
specific command officer will be one of the lieutenants.
All right, a command officer.
command officer.
So that will have no ties to the rest of the town unless it's a
Correct.
serious situation. And that command officer will control the details working together with all the details in case they need to be more visible or brought to another location?
Well, it depends on the incidences they break within the property, but to have command and control, but also to develop a better relationship with the merchants that exist, as well as with the security services that are on the grounds.
And utilize the video surveillance equipment?
Yes, they'll have access to our Patriot Place Command Center, which has got very high-tech video surveillance capabilities.
And there's other things, if you want to make it, instead of me asking, why don't you just,
Yeah,
you know.
there'll be office space available, and the office space that is designated is right off of our loading dock, so should any sort of processing need to happen, discussion with individuals, either a victim or otherwise, can all happen in one of the locations that could be designated for this. There's multiple locations that we have shown the chief to facilitate this.
And with the average of 8 to 13, is that the number I heard, police details on a regular weekend, Friday, Saturday?
Right, that's where the model is today, which, may or may not change in the future, as a new model is being analyzed, but that's where things are today.
Lorraine, is that what you got out of the meeting? Okay. So basically, if the Hibachi Steakhouse Saga, that's, how many people does that sit?
About 200. a little over
So
200.
does that fall shy of our bylaws for a
Yes.
police detail? By,
Like 15, I think.
okay. And your establishment, if it became one, would be entitled to have 2 because of the population. It's, I don't know if you know about our bylaws.
Whatever Ed determines.
Yeah, and- or by the determination of the chief of police. Okay. Anything else that you want to mention?
I just want to be clear that the period of time that we're going to be reviewing this new concept with the command feature will be from Friday, November 22nd through January 5th, 2014, as indicated in the chief's memo to the board, and which Patriot Place and the Craft organization supports.
Okay. And Edward, you got a positive feeling about this moving forward?
I think it's essential for our community to take some steps to improve the quality of policing on the property for the safety of the people that come into Foxborough and want to enjoy Patriot Place.
Can I just interrupt?
Yes.
There was no memo in the package.
It just was received before the meeting. I could give a copy to Lorraine. She's showed it to John.
I got the email. Did you get an email?
No, I just emailed, as our discussion this morning was.
So is there a
being
memo
emailed
at
to you.
this table?
Yeah, there is floating
You want
around.
to pass it down?
I don't have it.
Chairman, I have
Sold.
extra
Sold.
copies if that would be helpful.
This is all last week. So basically. Okay, hang on one sec. So Jim, do you want to digest that while Ginny asks a question? Is that what you want to? Okay, Ginny.
Chief O'Leary, you said there would be a command officer to oversee the details. Is that a new position for the Foxborough Police Department?
No.
No,
So
it's
you would
detail.
be. No, but you're talking about a command officer to oversee, so I'm thinking, because right now you said the shift sergeants
Correct.
back at the public safety building are in charge of the details, more or less.
Right.
So you're saying that now there will be a command officer up at Patriot Place who will be in charge of
That's
overseeing
correct.
the details? Okay. So my question is, that command off that Patriot Place is going to be providing, is Patriot Place going to be providing a whole new position in the
No,
Foxborough
that's
Police
one of
Department?
the officers that has other duties during the normal daytime hours, and it will be paid on a detailed basis to have the person up there supervising that team of officers.
So all it is the same, it's a existing Foxborough police
Right, it's an
officer.
existing
It's
officer.
a paid detail for a
For a police commander to manage the resources on site.
So all Patriot Place is paying for is a detail.
Correct.
So we're not benefiting by like an additional person to the police department provided by Patriot Place. It's not a new position. It's
No,
it's
it's
a
not.
detail.
Correct.
No, but it alleviates the strain, as you said earlier, on the sergeant on duty. That he doesn't have to worry about, and this is why I think it's important. And I've heard it stated by many members of the board. Well, you know, if that sergeant has to be in control of police details in situations at the stadium, he can't be focused on the town.
No,
So I'm just want to make sure that's clear.
Right, no,
Because, see, I've had the meeting twice. This is your first time hearing it, so
That's
I
my
just want
first
to
time
make sure
hearing
it's
it.
clear, yeah. So,
Mark, question? Okay.
yeah,
Chief, I just asked Lorraine what the occupancy of Toby Keith's was, and that's 1335 maximum occupancy. Let's say this has a maximum occupancy of 650. It's roughly 2,000 people. Do you have any issues with what I call a hyper-concentration of large establishments in really within a few hundred feet of each other? Is there any strain on policing with such a high concentration?
If we didn't have any resources on the grounds, it certainly would be, where we're having detail officers assigned to the different locations and managed. It's not going to be significantly different because we're incrementally adding places as opposed to having everything open during the same time frame. Yes, alcohol density is something that you have to be concerned with, and you have to take steps to try and mitigate the impact it has. If we're in a residential area, it would certainly have more of an impact on the immediate neighborhoods. And that, has come out over several studies over the past decades. However, we're in a suburban area surrounded by parking lots where residential areas are not severely impacted as they are in a more urban area. But it is something that, we have to monitor, and that's why we have officers assigned up there.
Sean, you good, Lorraine?
So Ed, with the adjustments that you're about to trial, when there is an incident, will there still be a car responding to Patriot Place when there's an incident?
No, because as part of this program, we're also expanding the hours that the patrol wagon will be on the grounds, both to interact with the public, being dismounted during the early part of the evening, as well as having that capability during the night itself, if people are taken into custody, so they can be transported to the station.
And who will process them? Will it be the wagon person who processes them down at the station, or how does that work? Does someone have to come off the road to process them?
That could happen whenever an arrest is made. In any of the neighborhoods, we usually have an officer that makes the arrest as well as the shift sergeant. In this case, the arresting officer doesn't go down from the stadium. We have them fill out a preliminary report, whether they're in for protective custody or a criminal offense, and that report is just attached to the booking forms that are filled out at the station.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
So this, what you're proposing, you're saying it's starting November 22nd, Chief, and going to January 5th?
Right.
And you're gonna run it for that while, and then adjust it, continue it?
We'll adjust based on the information, and as part of the background, not only assessing the operation, but also reaching out to some other communities that have tried some innovative practices and having an assessment done of those as to their practicality of being on Patriot Place and for our community.
What's your thoughts on Thursday night over the years? I mean, Thursdays have seemed to turn into Fridays. A lot of times, you see them going out they have entertainment on Thursday nights just as they do on Friday nights?
We haven't really had that on a regular basis. Certainly when Showcase Live was using a different business format, they were having acts on different nights of the week. In fact, this summer, Tuesday nights became more of a crowd attractor because one of the restaurants offered dollar burgers.
Yeah.
And that was a big draw amongst young men in their 20s that don't know how to cook at home and to try and go to that location. And my staff has brought it to my attention, so that particular facility has to, let's say, be better prepared for having the larger crowds on a Tuesday.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Oh, hold on. Is it, the public meeting's closed, Linda, unless the board wants to open.
It seems like you're bringing up another whole subject here that has nothing to do with that, so I was wondering if I could comment on that.
Does anybody want to open up the public? Anybody want to entertain that?
Sure, out of respect for Linda, and I think she's sat here the whole time, so
Yeah.
I don't think she was
Anybody
here
want,
last time.
that's a motion for Jimmy, I take it, to open, we
Yeah,
open the
I'll make a
public
motion
hearing?
to open the public hearing.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Linda, just come on up, please. Just for clarification, Linda, the reason I'm talking about this in front of, about Splitsville, because
I want to ask you a question on this part.
yeah,
So Linda Walsh, 8 Pond Ave.
well known,
What?
well known.
So, Brian, it sounds like this is something that you and the chief and Mark and Dan have gotten together and established that it's a need currently.
Yes, it's a need to look at the model.
And Chief, you're saying that we'd like to try this, start this month?
Correct, at the end of the month.
So this, this is gonna happen. You guys have worked this out,
Trying to be proactive.
being proactive without even, involving Splitsville or Howell at the Moon. And is your last name Howell?
No, it's Holian.
Okay.
I don't
But
how
it
it
kinda-
moves.
It kind of, stipulates your, I don't know what Walsh would be, but whatever. So I just want to commend you folks for being proactive and looking at things. And I think it's great when, we work together like that to accomplish one goal. And I think public safety has to be the first. It always is. And it's, no big like, oh, really? They're concerned about public safety. The chief did a great job by going down and inspecting everything down in Florida, as well as going into Paul's establishment and speaking to the authorities there. So I just want to commend you guys for coming in and jumping on that before the need, actually. Well, there's obviously a need, but without Splitsville or Howl at the Moon there. So good job, Chief, Brian, Mark, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing again?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so anyways, trying to get my thought back here. The board seems to be concerned with the public safety issue, which it should be. I think it's being proactive. I think this information is important because I want to reveal it to the board whenever I have meetings, as Jim has done in the past when he's had meetings with our entities and everybody else. So I think it has a lot to do with this public hearing because the concerns should be a little bit easier to deal with. To me, I like the concept. I like the idea. I think it'll work. But I'm also going to forewarn you. I'm probably the toughest person, and I'm not trying to toot my horn here when it comes to violations of liquor licenses since I've been on this board 7 years. And if anyone wants to disagree, fine, but I don't take it lightly at all. It sounds like you could have some issues moving forward with some of your clientele. I hope you don't let it get out of hand and you control it right away if this is granted. And I mean that sincerely. I want to build a relationship with you gentlemen as a representative of the town of Foxborough. I don't want to bring a disease to my town. Okay? And that, if anybody else wants to speak,
I just had
Jane?
a question. I thought last week there was a mention of monetary mitigation.
it's something that I think council is advised. I don't think that's appropriate for this discussion. Am I wrong, Mr. DeLuca, or
Well,
right?
mitigation is a broad term. Potentially what was talked about here by way of modifications to police procedures is mitigation. It could have included some dollar changes if necessary. There might have been some cost to building. As long as it's tied to a purpose, it's perfectly appropriate. A cash payment with no particular purpose or structure, would not be appropriate. But in this instance, what I've heard is the working of procedures, which may or may not involve monetary changes. I don't know. If they do, that's perfectly appropriate mitigation.
Because what was referenced was the, I forget what the amount was, but it was for, was it 20 years or something, and we have 8 more years to go or something like that. And I thought we had discussed, or it was brought up, to maybe extending that or doing something, revisiting that. And that's not what apparently was talked about.
No, we had that discussion with, in one of our meetings, but I'm not hearing a response to that, so I'm assuming that that's not something.
That was another discussion that you and Lorraine had at another meeting.
Right, that was
that
different.
I wasn't privy to. So until she reports to the board.
But that's still on the table, right?
Well, there's no response to that, so I'm assuming it's not. So,
Well, there could be a response from us saying that we would like that to be on the table.
Is there a proposal or a question relative to this?
Let me back up a little bit, just, so, you're right, I always get nervous when we're saying, are we asking for money? Obviously, we can't, because we can't do that for liquor licenses. What I referenced at the last meeting was the committee that you were on back in 2007 and 2008, quantified and qualified the potential issues in mitigation necessary for the 12 liquor licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So that committee looked at police staffing, fire staffing, snowplow trucks, equipment, and you add all that up, and it was like 1.4 million. So you divide that by the 12 liquor licenses. So that was the 119,000 that you could put on a value of a liquor license. And that's the only discussion I've had was at this table. So that, I think, is, and that's what this report is back from the town meeting in 2007 that you guys were part of. So what I'm hearing is some of the things that were discussed back then, such as police staffing, was quantified, and rather than paying for the police, you put it into a fund, and I'm assuming it went to the general fund and went back to pay for the officers and the extra staffing.
so there was, part of that agreement was $140,000 for 10 years, and so that's due to sunset, I believe, in 2018, and that's what was discussed in a meeting with Dan Murphy.
Yep.
And Randy Scollins and myself, and I had Ginny attend, because this was a separate meeting.
I just sat there.
And
Yeah, it was broken down over 12 years, and that ends in 2018.
Right.
For the 12 liquor licenses.
Right, so, I suggested that the impact on public safety does not go away after 12 years, and so that it would make sense for that payment to continue in perpetuity. So that was what was suggested, but, we're not getting a response on that.
Again, is there a proposal about that?
I'm going to point to Mr. DeLuca now. Is that appropriate?
It's a little late.
It's a little,
late.
yeah.
Well, no, it's not a little
There was a
late.
proposal made last Thursday.
I'm asking Mr.
Well,
DeLuca if it's appropriate.
you had substantive discussions. If there's an opportunity for additional discussions, you can conduct those. They don't necessarily have to continue here in your deliberations. There may be an opportunity to continue the deliberations to a different day if you think there's some reason to do that. I don't know if there's a mutual interest in doing that, however.
Do you want to caucus with your people?
Well, we wanted to take a 5-minute, regardless of the subject matter, about some other things. So why don't we do that right now? And we'll come back to you. If there is something to discuss on this matter, we'll be prepared to discuss it, but
So you
we'll take
want-
5 minutes
take
right
five.
now.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody, for your patience tonight. A lot of good deliberation tonight, a lot of good questions. Thank you, Frank. Okay, Brian brought up a question.
Well, I brought up the question, I don't know if there's a proposal or a discussion that it was occurred that, may need to be brought up publicly between select men, women that were together on that subject of the past mitigation. So I'm not sure what we're asking or talking about. So if there was a meeting or discussion, I'd like to hear the details of that.
Okay, so last Thursday, I met with, because I couldn't attend the meeting in the morning, I met separately with Dan Murphy. Mark was to attend, but last minute had to cancel, so I asked Ginny to be present. And
Just so I can
met with,
back you up on
Yeah.
that. That meeting was already scheduled for the afternoon.
right.
And then Chief O'Leary wanted to meet with me on a separate issue. Just want to make sure that's
Yep.
clear.
And I just want to make clear, I was there, I was present. I was present. Okay.
Right.
That's-
So, what I did was I asked, I asked about, talking about mitigation related to the fact that the volume of calls in the town has increased, the police force is stretched thin, and, considering the impact that another large venue will have in terms of, the town will still be faced with processing any incidents that happen. I wanted to have Randy present to explain where we are with basically the finances and dealing with our police situation. So actually, Randy, would you mind? So we had this conversation with Dan, and basically this is what the proposal was, that, this is the proposal that Dan was to take back for discussion. And this morning, or yesterday morning, when, was it this morning?
Yes, we met this morning.
So this
On-
morning when we met, Dan said that there was going to be a meeting this afternoon about what we had discussed last Thursday, and that he would call Bob, and Bob would let me know what happened, and then coming in, I was told that that was off the table. So there was some discussion, but I'll let Randy explain in more detail,
Sure. So,
because he provided the information.
the proposal that was brought forward in that meeting last Thursday had to do not with what was discussed here with the trial plan that the chief and Brian have been discussing, that's specific to Patriot Place, which sounds like a great opportunity to create some efficiencies, and on the face of it, it looks like it actually might, reduce some costs in terms of details, which is great. But it addresses Patriot Place specifically. So what what the concerns with a large facility, such as Splitsville and Howell at the Moon, is the impact on the rest of the community, all that additional traffic and sort of the multiplier effects across the community. And the police force is stretched thin to manage increased impacts all of the mitigation money that's been received has been more than fully expended. Given that we've added 7 public safety staff, very early on, and so it's fully exhausted, and then some, and the town has, fully invested beyond that. So we're looking at a situation here where we'd like to have the confidence to be able to add another permanent, police officer to the department, but with the sunsetting of the current mitigation, 140,000, it's going to be a revenue reduction, and to give us the confidence to be able to add that staff, consider that staff position for the police department. The proposal was to continue that, given the direct impact that is to be expected from this facility.
Thank you. So, we had this discussion with Dan, and then, Mark explained to me that was not on the table, so.
Well, let me say that the task that what the chief talked about was a very strong plan in terms of looking at the public safety issue and reviewing it as things stand right now. And we felt very good, including in that meeting today, where we said not only is this a short-term ability to look at the situation and analyze it, and I said I need a professional like Chief O'Leary to analyze it for a longer term, which is going to happen at the conclusion of this point. And I think that's where we stand right now. I think, and I'll be perfectly blunt, that I don't see how talking about the long-term future and further mitigation is appropriate at this point, given what we're dealing with here is a very qualified applicant. We left the last meeting. We've come up with a plan to address public safety. So I guess I'm very confused how, that subject, based on the meeting we had this morning, the letter that was provided to the board by the chief, where things stand, I'm not sure where the appropriateness is of any discussion beyond that at this point in time.
There's the response. All right, moving forward. Anything else to add? I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the movement of the current liquor license from the Stadium Fieldhouse to the applicant of Splitsville.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all's in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that's enough for tonight. That's all we're gonna do on the agenda. Good night, everybody. Motion to adjourn. Sorry.
Second.